On March 23, 1944, George Stinney Jr. had a chance encounter with two young girls that would alter his life forever. Hi, my name is Mo, and welcome to my channel. The Stinney family originally was from New York. They moved on to Alcaloo, South Carolina, believing that there was a better opportunity to make a better way of life. Now on this day, March 23rd, 1944, George and his sister Amy were taking the family cow to go graze right around this area. They ran into two young girls, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and her friend 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames. The older one, Betty, approaches George and asks if he'd seen any maypops. Now, maypops are a type of flower. We can assume that they wanted to pick some, because they're pretty flowers. George says he hasn't seen any. Betty and Mary continue on. So did George and his sister. They went on to go let the cow graze for a while. They came back from under the tracks back to where they live. Now remember, in 1944, we're deep into segregation, Jim Crow laws. Black children and white children are not allowed to play with each other. So it's very possible that even in a town with so few people, it wasn't rare to run into another child of a different race that you've never seen before. Later on that very evening, word is being quickly spread in the Alcaloo area that two little girls who went looking for maypop flowers haven't arrived home before it got dark. So a search party is then formed. Dozens and dozens of men shouting these little girls' names. The evening turns into the late evening, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they still have not been found. Just as the sun was coming up, searchers found the bodies of Mary and Betty in a wooded area. The girls were found on their backs with vicious head wounds. Mary had a 2-inch cut over her right eye, and Betty, her skull was completely crushed. It was crushed to the point where it was no longer a skull, but fragments. This was a very vicious beating and horrific death that these two little girls suffered. Reportedly, somebody had called the Clarendon County Sheriff's Department and told them that George Stinney Jr. was seen the previous day with his sister talking to those girls. Now, when someone called in, I can only assume it was to give the Sheriff's Department a lead, talk to the kid, get as much information out of him as you can that can lead you to who actually committed this crime. But looking back on it now, we can see that the police had an ulterior motive. They had other intentions with this information. A couple sheriff deputies get in the car and they start heading over to the Stinney family home. They grab George Stinney Jr. and take him down to the sheriff's office, and well, here's the problem. There is no written transcript of what took place. There's only the words of George Stinney Jr., if you want to believe them, basically confessing to the murder. The cops indicated that he confessed to the crime within 40 minutes of arriving to the sheriff's department. In the confession, he says that he used a railroad spike that was about 14 inches long, but according to the medical examiner, the marks that were left on the girls indicated that it was more than likely a hammer, because the marks that were made against their skulls were circular in nature. He said that the girls did not have any kind of defensive wounds on them, but in George's confession, he said that he whacked the younger girl first, and then he went for Betty June. Now, if you're Betty, and you just saw this kid lash out on your friend, aren't you gonna run? Wouldn't you have wounds on your back, or on your shoulder, or on your sides, or on your arms? I mean, at 14, he was only 5'1" and didn't even weigh 100 pounds. You can see in his picture, he's a small kid. Another point I want to bring up is that George's clothes were clean when he was arrested. Now, keep in mind, his family is poor, so it's not crazy to think that at best he only has 3 pairs of pants and 2 shirts. So where are the clothes that are covered in blood? Now, why am I bringing all this up? Well, these are very important details that should have been brought up in this case, right? When we're talking about a kid being on trial for murder, we can only assume that none of this was brought up. During the trial, his court-appointed attorney, Charles Coden, didn't call any witnesses for George's defense. He didn't cross-examine any of the witnesses for the prosecution. He didn't do much of anything. Now, to his defense, he was running for a seat in the House of Representatives, and it really wouldn't look good if he was defending a black kid. Trial took 2 hours, and the jury went into deliberation for all but 10 minutes. Unbelievable, 10 minutes. And on that same day, April 26th, 1944, George Stinney Jr. is found guilty of double murder, and he's sentenced to die by the judge. Decades later, historian George Frierson, who's from Alkaloo, South Carolina, heard about the case, bringing years of research to attorneys.
I was born in Alkaloo. The stigma of having my birthplace attached to a travesty like this, it's kind of hard to swallow.
And on December 17th, 2014, Circuit Court Judge Carmen Mullen overturned the execution, stating that his constitutional due process rights were violated. One of the most fascinating cases that I've ever read up on. A big shout out to Lamont at Large. I'm gonna leave a link down below with all my sources. If you guys loved this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Miley, my beat.